Okay, good. So as I was just saying to those previously, I appreciate that you haven't got loads of yoga equipment at home. So this class is mainly propless. We will do some things, we will try to use blankets or cushions maybe if we need them, but please don't worry if you don't have a whole repertoire of yoga equipment. It's not going to be the end of the world. But the first pose that we're going to get into, you can either practice this completely propless, or if you've got something like a yoga bolster, as you can see behind me on my mat, you're very welcome to use one if you've got your own one of these. And if this carries on for the next foreseeable future, because I'm going to do a yin class every week over the next, over the time for however long we're stuck doing this. But if you are local and you want to come and maybe borrow a bolster or other equipment, it's all just sitting there at the old town hall not being used. So if you do want anything like that, then what I'll probably get people to do is just put a deposit down, because these bolsters are so incredibly expensive and I can't afford to lose them. But they are sitting there. So if you want to borrow one, you're very welcome to. So if you get onto your mat, all of the poses tonight are going to be lying or sitting. So therefore, with that in mind, if you can position your camera so that I can see you when you're perhaps lying down or at least sitting, because that's going to be quite important. I need to be able to see you, if that's okay.
You sure I can do that? I've got a very small room, but I'll try.
Yeah, I know. And if you're on a computer and it's sort of stuck, obviously, if that's the case, then do please just work with what we've got.
Yeah, sorry, that's the best I can do.
That's all right. I can still see you.
I can see you.
Yay. Right. So before I come and put you all onto mute, if we just make sure that we understand that if I ask you a question and you're okay, then put your thumbs up, thumbs down, obviously, if you're not okay. Wave at me like this so that I can come and give you some help. If you don't want to ask help in front of everybody else, you can always unmute yourself at any time and ask me. But if you want to do it privately, there's the chat button at the bottom of the screen. So do find the chat button if you need it. So before as you settle yourselves down, you're going to come into reclining butterfly or Supta Baddha Konasana. And Supta Baddha Konasana is traditionally practiced with nothing. So it's like the feet are in a nice big diamond shape, the body lies flat, and the arms are above the head, a bit like this, okay? Now, you're very welcome to do that. You could put something underneath your knees, like a couple of blankets either side, or cushions to support the knees. Or if you have a bolster or a blanket even, a really thick blanket or two blankets, you could lie on those. And by lying down on something, you give yourself this opportunity for a back bend into the small of your back. So for some of you, this might be quite nice. It compresses and works into the kidney region in the back of the body. And what it allows you to do is put your elbows on the floor and bring your hands down so your palms face the ceiling. And then another lovely thing to maybe play around with, this is ultimately, so I'm just going to come and put you on mute while I carry on talking. So this is ultimately the king, if you like, of the yin poses. Right, 1 second. So okay, so you've all gone into quiet now, so it'll all quieten down for everybody. If you, like I said before, if you've got some music that you want to put on in the background, go for it. If you want to dim the lights or light candles, go for that too. But coming into Supta Baddha Konasana or reclining butterfly, a couple of additional features that if you have the luxury of all these extra props lying around, then when you're lying down, especially if you've got something underneath you, so you've got your little back bend going on, then another, maybe a rolled up, if you roll up a blanket, you could wedge the blanket into the back of your neck, like I've done here. It's not elegantly done, but it's just something to support the curve of the cervicular spine. Now the elbows, if you're propped up on something, do try to get the elbows resting onto the ground. If your hips feel a little bit vulnerable being in this open shape, then you could put cushions, as I said, underneath the knees, underneath the thighs, or you could use your belt to wrap it around the legs. Okay, and then it's maybe putting your eye pillow on, maybe just closing the eyes, maybe draping your arm of your jumper or something across the eyes. Another option here, after a little while, I'll give you this suggestion in maybe a minute or so's time, but it's also to take the arms above the head and just sort of loosely loop the arms around the top of the head. Okay, and it's just a case of settling yourself into this position. And one of the key things, especially when we use props in our yin practice, which, as I said to you previously, we're going to try to avoid using too many of tonight. But the props are there to hold you, okay? They're there to support your joints in particular, but also to give you something to settle down against. And the key element of tonight's practice, which I want you to keep returning back to, is the element of surrender. So you are surrendering into either the mat, the floor, the blankets, the cushions, the eye pillow. Let it sort of mold itself around your eyes if you've got one, if you've got an eye pillow. And let your body start to sink. And we do this in a number of ways. We let gravity, for a change, do its job. Instead of resisting gravity, as we do every time we take a footstep, every time we move our body around, our body is working in a resistance against gravity. And that's good. That keeps us strong. It keeps our bones healthy. It keeps our joints supple. It keeps us moving, keeps us alive. But for tonight, I want you to let all of that go, because I'm not worried tonight about the muscles of your body. And I'm not worried about the shapes that you are in. What I want you to think about tonight is how you're feeling and letting go of, if you like, an awareness of the form in which you're in. Just go into the sensations. So where are you feeling this particular pose at this particular moment? And it might be that if you're lying on something, you've got a bit of compression in your lower back, and this might feel quite nice. It might have felt intense at the beginning, and it may well be easing off now. You might find that it is taking a little while for your body to become softer. And this is this wonderful process that Yin Yoga allows us to explore. Because whilst we're here and we're working on surrendering, on letting go and becoming softer, we have, or we give the practice, the luxury of time. And ironically, for those of us that are at home more than we've probably ever been outside of holidays and, long weekends, and it's adapting, we're having to learn to adapt to this slightly new way of life. But what we do have is time. And in our yin practice, that time is there to allow us to maybe drop into a pose, a position, a way of lying, a way of sitting, that we might not always give ourselves the luxury of exploring. Okay. And we are going to stay here for a little bit longer. And that's what you'll notice, especially those of you that have maybe not practiced yin yoga with me before, that these poses will, some of them we won't be in for very long tonight, some maybe only for 2 or 3 minutes. Some maybe, or the majority will be in for about 5. This one, you have the luxury of staying in for time. And as one of the lovely Yin Yoga teachers, she teaches this style of yoga called Insight Yoga, Sarah Powers. And she says, if you've only got time for one pose, then do this one. So this is reclining butterfly. Now, sometimes you're going to notice, you may already have noticed that your body is getting a little bit chilly, and that's the nature of being still. Yin, in its essence, it's passive, it's sedentary, and it's cold. Yang is the opposite. So yang is moving around, it builds heat, it's the sun, it's being in the light, it's midday. Whereas yin is the dark, it's the cold, it's midnight. So that's what we're playing with. We're playing with the yin side of life, which is the slower, kind of yielding, surrendering side. The yang side will put up a fight, will fight till the end. But the yin side is the calmer side. And that's where we want to go into. We want to have that balance all of the time, because we can't always be fighting battles. Sometimes we have to let go. Sometimes we have to put our hands up and surrender. And that surrender comes with acceptance. And so tonight in your practice, can you accept where you're at this moment in time, rather than fighting or resisting? Quite often, how we work with that comes down to the breath. So you've all been muted, no one can hear you, just whoever is in your house may be with you. So I want you to breathe in through your nose, and I'd like you, we did this the other night, so those of you that practiced with me then, so you're going to breathe in through your nose and open your mouth and the breath out. So just like a sigh for the first couple of rounds. So breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and that little emphasis on the exhalation, coming out through the mouth with a tiny bit of sound, may encourage you to relax and surrender a little bit more. So we're going to take that a little bit further now. You're going to breathe in here, open your mouth, and the sound's going to come out like an ah. So it's ah. Breathing in again. One more time. Just breathe easily. And with the next few breaths that you take, as we remain here just for another minute or so longer, see if you can keep thinking about the exhalation having the same effect on your body as it did with a little bit of sound. Now, because you are in your own homes and you have the luxury to do so, if sound works for you, then carry on exploring it. Okay, well done everybody. So we're going to think about just gently coming out of the pose. And you're not going to make any movements too suddenly. The first thing when we've been in a pose for a while, we have to kind of plan our exit somewhat. So it's quite nice initially to maybe, if your hands will reach, maybe just put your hands on the edges of your thighs and just ease them back up towards the center. And from there, then, you may like to slide your feet away from you, just to relieve the sensation maybe in the hips. So you're still lying down, but just with your legs out straight. And take a breath. Okay, then the safest way to come out, if you're propped up on something, so if you're on cushions or on blankets, is to bend your knees again and then just gently and carefully roll off of your support and come to lay on your side with your knees curled up into sort of fetal position, just a loose, soft position, so that you can let your spine softly unwind in the opposite direction for a breath or two. Okay, and then you're going to slowly make your way up so you can come up to sit. Well done, everybody. Okay, so you can shuffle out of the way, or maybe if you've used a blanket, now we're going to sit into a forward fold. So sometimes having a blanket to sit on is quite nice. You could use a yoga block if you've got one. You could sit on your bolster. I would suggest having your feet on your yoga mat still. So even though I'm going to face you like this, my heels are on the floor, so it's not going to be comfortable for that to be maintained for 5 minutes. So I want you to stay with your heels on your yoga mat if you can. Maybe sit on something, especially if you have sciatic pain of either kind, whether it's coming from your lower back or whether it's from your piriformis. Sitting on things is good. as it is for tightness in the hips in general. We're going to come back into the diamond shape for the feet, for the legs. So again, if you want, you have a couple of options. You can have your feet really close in if you wish to, or you could make a looser diamond so that you get a little bit more work into the hamstrings down the back of the legs than when you have the feet closer in. You could again put something under the knees if they need a little bit of help, a little bit of support. A bolster if you've got one, or a rolled up blanket is great to go under the knees. And all you're going to do is curl forwards like this. So you are rounding down towards your legs. You could maybe hold on to your toes if you've not got socks on. It's quite a nice thing to weave your fingers in the spaces of each toe. If you get any opportunity to do that, that's so great for your toes. So you could sit there and just gently separate out your toes as you bow forwards. And you are looking here to round your spine. Okay, so this isn't you know, like a normal yoga practice where perhaps you've got your back really straight. You can allow for your body to kind of hunch forwards, that's okay. Good. But the most important thing, as I said before, is to make sure the joints feel supported. So if your knees in particular feel vulnerable, please put something underneath them. Maybe sit towards the front edge of your sit bones, so you could kind of facilitate more of a tilt forwards in the pelvis, and a sensation that the tailbone is lengthening out behind you. And just allowing yourself to bow forwards, and you can let the chin fall really close towards the chest. So you've got this extra length into the back of the neck. But if that's uncomfortable, you could put your elbows onto the edges of your legs and rest your chin in your hands. Sometimes that's more comfortable with something underneath your elbows. So maybe a cushion is a good idea. You could put your elbows onto a cushion and rest forwards like that. Some of you might like to stretch your arms forwards and give your arms a little bit of a work. When we work with the arms, we're working the heart and the small intestine meridians that run down the arms, as just to name just a couple. Also the lungs and large intestine run down the arms too. So yeah, remember the lungs, we talked about this on Tuesday night. We are working quite hard at the moment to stretch the legs and to kind of work with the stability and the joints, improving the joint health by working with Yin Yoga in this way. And when the legs are strong, the lungs are strong. When the lungs are strong in Chinese medicine, the lungs are linked to our defense mechanism, our immunity. And so we can kind of, if you imagine yourself as being like the ready brek man with that ready brek glow around you, when the lung energy in Chinese medicine is nice and healthy and strong, then kind of illnesses, germs, anything that comes our way, we kind of bounce them off. We don't let them in. We don't host them, because our body is strong and vibrant and healthy. And that's where we're working into as we move into spring in our practice. So to kind of give you a little bit of a taster of some Chinese medicine theory, we've just come out of winter, as you're probably aware, and winter is the kidney and the bladder meridians. And so a lot of our yoga poses in Yin focus on keeping those energy lines nice and vibrant and supporting them. Now we're into spring, and spring is the liver and the gallbladder. And if we think about the liver and its lovely position on the right hand side of our abdomen, and its size, it's massive, isn't it? And during the night it works really, really hard to store our blood. And when it stores our blood, it's helping to keep it nice and clean, it's helping to keep it nourished. And this is really important because when we've moved away from winter time, winter is generally, even though we should be hibernating, what we tend to do is we eat a lot of rich foods. We eat kind of stews and pies and wintry things, stodgy things, if you like. And what that does is it gives our liver an extra job to do because it's having to kind of clean our bodies a little bit more. So when we move into spring, our diet suddenly changes, and we want to eat more green and leafy things that are in abundance, starting to grow again. And this nourishes the liver, nourishes the gallbladder meridians. And we're working them right at this moment by working the inner legs as we're doing. So this is where the liver meridian runs. So as we work the legs like this, you keep breathing in and out. Just thinking how you're nourishing your body, not only on a physical level, but also on an energetic level. I'm just going to keep breathing. Staying soft for another couple of minutes. All right. So slowly and gently begin to think about coming up and use that thinking to facilitate moving. And when you come up, you may just want to slowly slide or ease the legs away, and maybe lean backwards, lean with the hands behind you a little bit, and maybe just let the legs shake out, wobble the legs from side to side. Maybe lean back into the hands and lift the heart, squeeze the shoulder blades together, just opening up the front of the chest a little bit. Good. And then I'd like you to pedal with your toes. As you point one set of toes away, then do the other, and just give the calves a little bit of a squeeze, and the shins and the tops of the ankles a little bit of a stretch out. So these type of movements in between each in posture are going to be really beneficial, and it's so welcome to just move in any kind of organic way, any way that you think, oh, I really need to do that. You know, no one need know what you're doing. You're in your own space, so you can explore moving in a way that feels really nourishing for you. Okay. So we're going to come to lay on our front. So we've already taken a little bit of a back bend. Whether you are laying on a bolster for your reclining butterfly or not, just the act of lying down with the legs in that position creates an arch in the lower back. So you've done a mild back bend, whether you had a back bolster or a blanket underneath you. But now we're going to transition into Sphinx or potentially Seal. So I want you to come and lay on your tummy with your forearms underneath you. So your elbows are underneath your shoulders. And we've talked about this most recently. So you could have your feet fairly wide apart, or you could have your feet together. And the two create different sensations in your back. When the feet are a little bit wider apart, you get more of a sensation located in the lumbar spine, deep low in the lower back. When the legs are closer together, the back bend seems to move in a little bit of a higher way, seems to be that it spreads itself up the spine. Now, if you're here and you're thinking, I'm okay, but I'm not getting much sensation here, then you could use a yoga block if you have one. You could put a blanket, something like this, underneath your arms, just to prop you up a little bit higher if you feel that you want a deeper back bend and you're not getting a big enough back bend. If you took a deep back bend for the reclining butterfly, the first pose that we did, and you want to bypass Sphinx, if you think, no, I don't want to do this, you want to come up into seal, you take your hands a little bit wider maybe than your mat and turn your fingers out towards the sides, and you'll come up with straight arms. Now the arms can come quite close or quite like alongside your hips if you want to. So you can play around with this. You can really press. This becomes a bit more active. So obviously don't do it if you're thinking, I've only just eaten my dinner and this is a bit too much of a stretch for my tummy. You can, the further forwards your hands are, the easier the pose becomes. So you can always experiment with different arm positions according to your own needs. But if you have anything going on in your back that you're thinking, I want to just take it a little bit easier, then I'd prefer it if you stayed into a Sphinx. You can always prop up your elbows a little bit higher should you need to. Now then, what do you do with your head while you're here? Now, one option is to let the chin fall towards the chest and allow the back of the neck to hang, to lengthen, and the head to hang forwards. So again, it's enjoying the pull of gravity and what that does maybe within your shoulders. How does that feel? Those of you that are up higher and into seal pose, you may want to explore, maybe not for too long, maybe just for a few breaths, but you may like to explore dropping the head back. And this is very good for the thyroid, very good for stimulating throat, thyroid issues, especially if you're looking to clear the energy in your throat center. So this is for those of you that maybe struggle to get your voice heard, or you don't feel that you're able to articulate yourself as easily or as confidently as perhaps you might like. Okay, so have a play, have an explore, have an experiment, and then aim to come into a position that you can remain in for the next 3 minutes. Okay, now 3 minutes suddenly becomes quite a long amount of time when you're here. But one of the features of our yin practice is that we play around with all the props, we experiment with different positions, we try different things out, and then we resolve to remain still. And this is one of the tattvas of our practice, is that we embrace becoming still while we're in the practice. Of course, you can explore your head position, that's fine. So if you get tired of having the head up and you want to drop the head forwards, go for it. But do try to stay in the pose. And as I alluded to at the very beginning, you might find that it is quite intense to begin with, and then that intensity starts to ebb away, starts to decrease. And that's what I want you to enjoy doing while you're here. Well done. So we've got about 2 minutes left in the pose. So for the second minute, we're going to explore a little bit of sound again. And this is optional. If you want to leave it out, you can do. You're going to breathe in through your nose, and we're going to make an ooh sound this time. So you're going to breathe in. You may have felt that sound coming right deep from within your belly. So let's do it again. Breathe in. Well done. Let's do it one more time. This time, think about the throat chakra clearing, becoming more vibrant, you getting your voice out into the world to be heard. So nice breath in. Good job, everyone. And then just allow your body to stay here. We're going to stay for 1 more minute. Maybe just 4 more breaths. Breathe right down into your belly. And as your breath expands the lower part of your abdomen, feel your lower back being stimulated. Remember the kidneys, the kidney energy here. It's our gate of life, our battery pack, our vitality stored here. Good job. And then slowly take as much time as you need, but just gently let yourself come down to rest on your tummy. Maybe make a pillow for your forehead to rest on. And let your shoulders relax, let your upper body become softer and easier. And then when you're ready to release the lower back from the position it was in, you're just going to bring your right arm alongside your face and release your left arm back down by your side and turn your head to the right. Bring your right knee up beside you. And just lay here for a breath or two. Okay. Then you're going to swap sides. So bring the leg back in, bring the left knee up by your side, right arm down by your side, left arm up by the face. So you're just taking that as though you're lying in bed, maybe with your hand under the pillow, your head turned to the left. Just letting the softness creep back in, letting the body release, the body becomes softer. Enjoy being still for a moment or two. Okay, everybody, well done. So when you're ready, just peel yourself away from the ground. Good job. Okay, so we haven't got very far to move, you'll be pleased to hear. And all you're going to do is roll yourself over, but it's quite nice before we begin just to lay down with your knees bent. You don't need any props for this. You're just going to rock your knees from side to side a couple of times. Okay. Just making sure that the low back feels comfortable and settled, and that you've released maybe any residual tension or or tightness there. Okay. And then when we come back to the center the next time, just hug the knees in towards your chest, give them a little bit of a squeeze in, and maybe just rock the knees also from side to side. Good job. Okay, so we're going to come into Banana Asana. And it's as simple as it sounds. We're going to lie, please, on the left-hand side of your mat. Let's lose the body. Right, so shuffle your body over onto the left-hand side of your mat. And the aim here is to remain lying flat. So the hips need to be flat, the shoulders, the upper back needs to be flat. You're not rolling onto your side. What you're going to do is maybe use your elbows to support you, but you're going to shuffle your upper body across to the right so that you're starting to lie in a curved shape. And that might be enough. Okay, you might do this and you might think, actually, that's enough for me, I want to stay there. But then another option is to walk the feet also over to the right. So you just do little baby steps with the heels, keeping the back of the hips nice and flat. You could leave the feet there. Some people will, well, I'll give you the option to cross the ankles in a minute actually. But the final add-on, if you like, is to take the arms alongside the ears and maybe hold on to your left wrist and just gently encourage that extra bit of length down the left-hand side of your body. You can turn your head in any direction that you want it to be. So some people quite like to turn the head to the side or just walk the head so that the ear, the right ear, comes over towards the right shoulder. So you're really facilitating the side stretch into the neck as well. You might find that the heels kind of want to go a little bit, they want to move back to their original position, and that's okay. So you might find that crossing the ankles helps. Some of you will want to cross the left ankle over the top of the right, and that will give you a really extra deep stretch right down through the outer hip, along maybe the IT band, along the outer thigh. And think about all the muscles along the side of your body. So you've got your intercostal muscles that weave their way between your ribs. You've got your obliques, the sides of your abdomen forming part of your core. And all of these are getting really nice, all the connective tissues that bind these muscles and hold them strong. Remembering that your IT band, your iliotibial band, is in fact just a thick mesh of connective tissue. And we always think about kind of loosening it, but really, do we want to do that? We have to wonder whether we want to do that. We want to put it, the reason it's so strong and so tough is because it's due to all of the forces that are going through it, forces that are holding us upright, that are allowing us to walk and to move our bodies. Okay, well done everybody. Lovely. So this is another one of those poses where you get into it initially at the beginning and you think, oh, this is really quite strong. And as long as you're able to breathe and you're not losing your breath through being here, then that's okay. You're in the right place. You might find that the intensity backs off fairly quickly. And if that's the case for you, then you have absolute permission to wiggle or to move a little bit deeper into the pose should you need to. However, go back to the idea of surrendering. Sometimes we can surrender into being, even if the situation that we're in at the moment is one that is a little bit stressful. Like this banana asana, this side bend can be quite intense. And it could be taking all of your concentration just to be here, but you're doing it. You're allowing, you're giving permission to just be in this moment and feel these sensations as they arise. Just let the breath sweep up and down the side of your body, and keep using the exhalation. Maybe the ah sound will be quite pleasant here, to soothe and nourish and allow for your body to accept the shape, to accept the stretch on the left hand side and the compression on the right hand side. Maybe even just to enjoy being. Okay. So we're going to think about coming out. This isn't one to maybe stay in for that long, maybe just a few minutes at a time. Okay, so when you're ready, think about releasing your arms, maybe back down by your sides, and then walking your feet back, shuffling your upper body back, and just lying for a minute. If you want to move, remember, move in any way that your body requests you to do so. Sometimes just lying and being still can be so pleasant. Okay. And then you're going to shuffle your body over to the right hand side of your mat so that we can do the same thing but on the other side. So move yourself over. Make sure that the back of your body remains flat, and start to shuffle the upper body across towards the left hand side. So you're taking the stretch into the right hand side of the body, compressing the left hand side this time. So then walking the heels across as well, just take it slowly and don't go too far, don't go into it too strong so that you're in a position where you just can't lie with some kind of ease, that it's too intense, that it's taking your breath away. But however, play with that edge, play with that intensity, but don't make it so that it's unbearable. Play with maybe taking your arms over the top of your head and loosely holding on to the right wrist this time as you just encourage that little bit more length down into the right arm, the hand, the armpit even, the underneath of the armpit into the sides of the rib cage. And maybe explore crossing the ankles. So maybe right ankle on top of left, or even left on top of right, and see whether crossing the ankles allows you to get that sort of locked feeling going on. Well done. And then breathe. You're going to stay here for maybe another 3 minutes. So you could work with your breath quite beautifully here. Thinking about the breath moving down the right hand side of your body and up as you breathe in and out like a wave. Think about the fluidity of the breath and how it can soothe and nourish the connective tissues of your body. If you sense the fluid nature of our being, the fact that we're, you know, pretty much water. We're made up of such a high percentage of water. And yet we never think of our bodies in a fluid way. We think of ourselves as being stiff, as being rigid, as getting problems where we get stuck in our joints or our muscles get locked. If we can stay within the fluidity and keep that mindset, keep the circular, rhythmic, flowing nature to our bodies, might bring a little bit of balance, a little bit of harmony. Okay, so 1 more minute. If for this last minute you want to make the side bend a little bit deeper, or even if you want to back out of it a little bit, please do. All right. So think about coming out when you're ready. So maybe bringing the arms back down by your sides first of all, and then shuffling yourself back slowly, gently, maybe returning yourself into the middle of your mat. And if it feels good again, you obviously move in any way that works best for you. But if you want to hug your knees in towards your chest, if you want to rock from side to side, or simply just rock your knees from side to side. All right. Very good, everybody. Well done. So then, when you're ready, please, you're going to come up to sit. The slow peeling off of the floor that happens. Okay, so we're going to come into a couple of poses, one after the other, and I just wanted to show you what they could perhaps look like. If you have the luxury of being near a wall, then you may well want to make use of it, but again, it's not absolutely essential. We're going to come into pose first of all, where we're going to fold forwards, and you might want to sit on something like blankets or cushions. You might want to use a bolster or another cushion in front of you or underneath your knees. So first of all, we're going to round forwards and look a bit like this. So we're going to come into a caterpillar, So it's not like your normal kind of classic yoga pose where you might be encouraged to keep your legs straight and your back really straight and long. I want you to round your body and to really allow yourself to kind of fall forwards, head coming down, so you get that really nice long length. It's exactly the same as the butterfly one, but with the legs straight, or indeed the knees bent. So that's going to be the first variation that we're going to come in. Now, some of you might feel, I want to leave that one out and I'd like to come straight into snail, which is, I've got the bolster behind me so that maybe you could put your feet or your knees, but you could equally use cushions. You could equally have a chair. So if you're right next to your chair in your living room, your sofa, then make use of it. His snail is a bit like a shoulder stand, but you're going to maybe support your back. You're going to let it round. So it's quite nice to be back here like this and just to let the legs kind of hang, and maybe the feet touch onto something, maybe the shins touch onto something. You can come all the way over like this. You could link the fingers and roll the shoulders together, but it's quite nice to have the hips in sort of this low down position and just let gravity again do the work, making sure that most of your body weight is in your shoulders. But for some of you, you might be thinking, nah, I don't want to do that at all. But if you look at it, it's the same shape as this one, but just in the other direction. Okay, so they're essentially the same pose, just practiced in two very different ways. Okay, so maybe come into your forward fold position first of all, your caterpillar, and then come into snail. I'll give you a time check. I'll give you a cue to do that as and when. It's quite nice to have some extra padding underneath the shoulders for snail. So an extra blanket across your yoga mat, then that's quite a nice thing to encourage to use as well. Okay, so have a little bit of a play. I have got you all on my screen. I can see you all, but I can't see you all at once. So I've got a few of you on one screen, and then when I swipe across, I've got the rest of you on another. So if you do need me, if you do want to wave at me, I'll keep flicking between the two places, the two pages. But just hang out. Just find a position that you feel comfortable with being in and hang out in it for a little while. And explore. So we're back into using gravity really nicely here. Back into surrendering. And it's really important for either variations, whether you're sitting and forward folding or whether you're in snail, you've got to try to keep your muscles relaxed. Because the moment that we try to work the muscles here, because this isn't a muscular practice, we are not looking to use the muscles here as much as we are looking to put forces through the joints. And this is a really important thing to remember. We are stressing the connective tissues of the body. Stress is meant in a good way. So we're putting forces, we're putting weight, we're creating shapes that perhaps we don't always do. And this benefits the body because it encourages the joint spaces to stay healthy and to stay strong. Because when we don't use them enough, when we don't put forces, when we don't weight bear particularly, either through the joints or through the bony structures, then they start to deteriorate. And as we get a little bit older, especially, we need to be looking after these joints of ours. So load bearing, weight bearing is just as important as kind of doing a cardiovascular exercise for the heart, for keeping the blood moving, keeping the heart rate up. Just as important as keeping the muscles strong, doing any kind of fitness exercise. but any kind of weight bearing, whether it's lifting weights as well, weightlifting is really, really healthy for us to be doing. And that's pretty much what you're doing at the moment, but with your own body weight and with gravity. Plus the lovely benefit of you just going, okay, I've got this for tonight. I am just going to be in this position. And I'm going to suggest to those of you that are thinking about coming into snail to stay in caterpillar for maybe 5 or 6 more breaths. And then if you want to transition into snail, then you're very welcome to try it. And if you try it and you think, nah, it's not for me and I want to come back out and go back into caterpillar, or even just lie out on your mat, on your lying down just comfortably, then that's okay too. All right. So those of you that want to play coming into snail, then please do. Remember, keep relaxed. Support the hips with your hands and allow the back to round. Let the feet fall over the back of your head. Whether they touch the floor or not really doesn't matter. In fact, the weight of the legs just dangling in the air is actually quite nice. Like I said, if you're near a wall and you want to try being a little bit upside down but not quite into the full snail position, then having the legs up in the air, up the wall or just hanging around in the air is also a really lovely position to be in. Well done, everyone. So whatever position you're in, if you want to stay here for 1 more minute, that's about 5 or 6 more breaths, then please do. If you're ready to come out, then please just come and lie down on your mat. Okay. All right, so for those of you still either in your caterpillar or in snail, just gently begin to return yourself to an upright position. No, sorry, actually scrap that, lying down position, beg your pardon. Just come to lie. So if everybody comes to lay down, you're going to lay on your back. Just letting your spine now sink into the mat. And what you may be noticing is that and what you may continue to notice both tonight and into tomorrow is just how much space or how much mobility you have in the spine. Tonight's practice very much focused on getting the spine to move through its different possibilities, if you like. Okay. So our next pose is one I don't always practice in my yin classes. So we normally do this in our normal standard yoga class, and it's happy baby pose. So you're going to bring the knees towards your chest, and you're going to take your arms to the inside of your legs, but reach down to hold on to the outside of your feet. The soles of the feet look like they're standing on the ceiling, and you're giving yourself a little bit of activity in the biceps. So you're just drawing the knees sort of downwards towards the ground. Now, for some of you, you might be really comfy here. Some of you might like to grab your cushion or your blanket, or even if you've got your bolster, you could use your bolster. I'm going to use it because it's to hand, so it makes it a bit easier. So if you feel that you need a bit of support underneath the back of your hips to make being in this position a little bit more comfortable, then you can put something underneath the back of your hips just to make it easier. For some of you, it might actually give you a little bit more stimulation, just that little bit of extra curve of the pelvis, that little bit of extra height to the tailbone, and that might take some of the pressure out of your arms. Of course, you can stay here. You don't have to hold on to the feet. The feet obviously start to do their own thing as soon as you let go of them, but you could take your arms above your head if you prefer. I don't always do this myself because I quite like having hold of the feet, and that the weight of drawing the feet downwards gives me the extra opening into the hips that I'm kind of looking for. However, some of you might be very open in your hips and might be looking for something else. So if that's the case, you could take your feet open into a V shape. Be conscious of the space around you. So you could open the feet out wide if you want a slightly different sensation into the legs. Less about the hips, more about the leg space. But nevertheless, we can stay in a happy baby if that's where it's at for you today. So there's loads of ways, always ways of adapting, always ways of exploring. But for the time being, just close your eyes and breathe. Make sure the shoulders are comfortable, the back of the neck feels long. Just move the chin into the face a little bit. And a bit like banana asana that we did a few poses ago, this is probably another one of those that you might not want to stay in for particularly long. So I'm just going to invite you to stay here for 1 more minute, especially if you're holding onto your legs fairly strong and you're really actively pulling your knees downwards towards the ground, because obviously they're either side of the rib cage, they should be so fairly wide apart. And this can make it a bit too yang-like. So therefore, we don't want to go to the yang side because yang is too much. Yang is all day long. And I want you to stay in the yin side, stay in the passive, in the soft, in the softly yielding place. Okay. So let's think about coming out. Now, if you've got something underneath your bottom, underneath your hips, leave it there and gently release your feet and slowly return the feet down to the floor and then slide the legs away. But keep the cushion or the blanket, whatever you've got underneath the hips, and you can shuffle it a little bit, but just enjoy that little bit of stretch, that little bit of length and opening into the front of the hips. You might not have been so aware of that when we did the back bends because we were on our fronts when we did the the Sphinx or the seal pose. But when you're lying like this and you've got a little bit of extension through the front line of the body, we can feel it a little bit more in the hip flexors and the quads. So enjoy that for a few more breaths. Okay, so then when you feel ready, bend your knees, move any way that feels good, that feels calming or soothing for your body. And then you can ease yourself around. We're going to come up to sit, and we're going to come and sit into straddle pose. Okay, good. So straddle is a wide legged forward fold. So I would turn yourself around on your mat so that when you sit with your legs out wide apart, you can keep your heels onto your mat, just like we did when we forward folded before. I've got a cushion underneath me, underneath my sit bones, and that just allows for a little bit of a tilt forwards into the pelvis. You can, of course, bend the knees. If you have taken your legs out nice and wide apart and you're thinking, not too sure about this, put something underneath the knees, maybe a rolled up cushion, a rolled up jumper, yoga blocks, whatever you've got to hand. If you need something underneath the knees just to give you a bit of flexion there and take some of the pressure off of the body. Now, if you are lucky enough to have a chair to hand, then you could do this pose with a chair in front of you, and you could rest your elbows or your forearms onto the chair, the seat of the chair, and fold forwards onto it. Maybe rest your head onto your hands and allow yourself to come into your flexion that way. Okay, so there might be a bit of, you could use whatever props you've got in the room if they're available to you. If you have a bolster, you could use your bolster on its end and just prop it up and maybe rest your forehead on it. Same goes with any other furniture that you've got around. You could put cushions, blankets, something underneath you, so that if you fold forwards, you might be able to get your forearms down and maybe rest your chin in your hands or your forehead in your hands, or let your arms reach forwards again, that nice stretch for the upper body, a little bit into the arms, a little bit into the heart and small intestine, lung and large intestine meridians. Now, sitting with the legs super wide apart, we're really getting into the liver and the kidney meridians, and indeed the spleen. Spleen is really important for the transformation and transportation of the food that we eat. And so when we're trying to keep ourselves really well, we need to nourish our bodies, not only with these energetic and healing and nurturing practices, but also with quite literally what we're putting into our bodies. And if you remember a few minutes ago when I talked about, Christmas time or winter time, we eat lots of heavy, kind of stodgy food. And now we want to move into a period where we're putting lighter things that are slightly easier to digest, so that our body can kind of cleanse itself and prepare itself for the rest of the year to come. We're just like Mother Nature. We're just like the earth. We have to go through these cycles within the space of the year, kind of replicating the seasons within our own bodies. And when we do that, when we start to tune into that and listen to that intuitively, our bodies become much more balanced and much healthier, happier places on the whole. Okay. So make sure that you're really comfortable here. Make sure that your back is not niggling. If it is, then you might be better to sit up a little bit higher, not take such deep flexion. Keep thinking about tilting the pelvis rather than rounding the spine. Nourish the inner legs, maybe by giving them a little bit of a rub with your hands whilst you're in this pose, if they're feeling a bit intense. But the same thing goes as before, just use your breath and sigh the breath out through the exhalation. And we're going to use a little bit of sound here just for the next minute or so. Okay. So we've practiced an ah sound, we've practiced an oo sound, and now we're going to practice the sound, the last part of an om. So taking a breath in, and then with your mouth can stay fairly closed or lips just slightly parted, you're going to kind of go So very, very much like Brahmari breath, the bumblebee breath. So keep going with this. Do a few more rounds as you wish. Right. So beginning to prepare yourself for coming up and back out of the pose. Just easing yourself upright, peeling yourself away. Well done. Give the inner thighs a little bit of a rub. Good job. And then easing the legs to slowly back and giving the legs a little bit of a shake. Good job. Okay. All right. You might want to just bend the knees, lean back into the hands, have the feet fairly far away from you so that you can just rock your knees from side to side. Well done. Okay. So we've done quite a lot of flexion and extensions and side bends and lateral flexion for the spine. So we're going to finish with some twists, and we're going to do this lying down. Then we'll come into Shavasana. So Shavasana will be for like the last 15 minutes of the class. So because of that, because we're lying down, do make sure that you are warm. If you want to put your socks on, if you want to have blankets nearby so that you can potentially cover yourself over with them at the end, eye pillow, all of that sort of stuff. Just make sure that it's all around you. It's fairly easy to obtain. Okay. All right. So you're going to lay down when you're ready and hug your knees in again towards your chest. And I'm going to give you loads and loads of variations, loads of options here for what or how you could lie. Now, straightforward one to begin with is to lie with one leg out straight down to the end of the mat, and the other foot to be maybe on the knee or the thigh or somewhere that it feels comfortable. And you can take your hand onto the knee and just roll it over to the side like this. And if you want to put something underneath the knee, a blanket or something, cushion, then go for it. Now the other arm, on the opposite side, I would keep this elbow bent, a bit like a cactus arm, and just let that come down to the floor. Use your hand to weigh the knee down, maybe turn the head in the direction of the arm and lie out like that. So that's option number one. Option number two is to keep both knees bent and come up into a tighter, more like a classic lying twist from a yoga practice. And you could work towards having the legs straight. You could keep one leg bent and have one leg straight, a bit like that. So there's loads and loads of ways that you can vary this lying twist, but I want you to be nice and comfortable. So please just come into a lying twist that works for you, works for your body, works for your comfort. Now, when we are thinking about twisting, if we are lying it down on our back to begin with, and the shoulders are flat on the floor, but we bend the knees or bend a knee, and we move from the lower part of the body, then the twist is going to be in the lower part of the spine. So think about this. Think about this in terms of if you have got any issues in your low back, any niggles, any tightnesses, and they haven't been eased out with your practice, think about being mindful of that now while you come into your twist. Because, for instance, as a comparison, if you were to bring your knees or your legs into the twisted position and you're lying on your side, and then you would open your arms and your shoulders up into the twist then automatically goes higher up the back. So I'm telling you this for those of you, because obviously you're on your own, you're at home, you're practicing in your own space, and you've got to trust your own judgment here. So if, for instance, you think you would be better having the twist in your upper back, then maybe bring yourself to lie on your side with your knees bent, and then release and open the upper body into the twist, rather than doing it in the first way that I described. Maybe this is information overload, but I want you to be careful of your own body and to listen to what it is that your body is asking you to do. So this is quite a nice, if you like, cue for twists in general. So yeah, so when we move the lower part of the body, the twist generally tends to reside in the lower part of the spine. When we move the upper part of the body, the twist resides in the upper part of the spine, the mid to the thoracics, the cervicular spine. So with all of that in mind, get yourself super comfy. I'm loving that you're getting snuggled in, people. This is all good. We like a bit of blanket work going on. And support. So if you've got cushions to hand, if you've got spare blankets, and you think to yourself, oh, my arm just isn't in the right place, or I'm getting pins and needles in my hand or in my fingers, you mustn't stay in the pose. Especially in the twist, you mustn't stay in these positions if it's creating that kind of discomfort. So do bring the arm back down by your side, bring it closer to your body, or release the twist a little bit. Don't be so deep, don't be so intense. All right. It's super well done. And what I'd probably suggest is that you unravel yourself in the same way that you came into the pose. And just spend a few moments lying back, lying still maybe. Taking a couple of breaths, just letting the body rebalance itself. And then you can move into the same pose, but explore it on the other side. And it may well be that coming into it on the other side feels completely different, and you might need to adapt or adopt a slightly different pose. And that's okay, that's all good. You might need different props on this side, you might need different arm positions or leg positions. Just come into a lying twist where you can feel the intensity, if you like. You want to feel the internal organs. If you want, just think about visualizing them being cleansed with this twisted position that you're in. I'd like you to think about your breath nourishing all the digestive organs. Think about the breath creating space in your body as you breathe in, and then allowing a deeper sense of letting go, of surrendering into your mat as you breathe out. Visualize too the space in your spine, that you have returned to it this evening through all the different movements, all the different shapes that you have encouraged for your body. Think about the intervertebral discs and how these stay plump and fluid filled and nourished because they have been stimulated. And when we stimulate these joint capsules, these spaces, the body sends signals to these areas to stay filled with fluid. It's when we don't use them that the body thinks, oh, there's no point in keeping those areas hydrated and fluid filled. So we'll put our energy, we'll put our resources elsewhere where it's needed more. So it's really, really important to take your spine through its range of movements and to put different forces, different stresses on different parts of the body in a manageable and a controlled way. Think too about how when we twist the body, we're kind of wringing it out. And I want you to have that same sense from your practice tonight within your mind space. So as you allow the body to unwind, instead of staying, if you like, in the exterior, I want you to go deep within, deep into the interior of your body. And allow your body to find this calm and peaceful serenity that lives within you. Okay, everybody, very, very well done. And well done for staying with the practice and staying with the poses and the exploration of them. So carefully and mindfully think about unraveling yourself and coming back, and then moving in any way that feels necessary. So whether it's rocking the knees from side to side, or hugging the knees in towards your chest and rocking from side to side, or just taking a full body stretch, move in a way that feels that it's going to benefit you, it's going to release. And then from here, you're going to come into Shavasana. And so for this Shavasana, it's going to be just slightly longer than 10 minutes. And you might want to therefore place a cushion under your head. You might want to roll up a blanket and put that underneath your knees. You may well want to use one of your blankets to cover yourself over with. Now, you're very, very welcome, if you want, to leave the video, leave the class. This is your practice and you're in your home, so I'm not going to be offended if you quit the video and you just slip yourself off gently to bed now. So if that feels like it's the necessary, the right thing for you to do, I'm very aware that when we practice this together normally, we're at a location, aren't we? And when we finish, we pack our things away, we jump into our cars, we drive ourselves home. With that in mind, when we lie in Shavasana for 10 minutes, if you happen to nod off, it's not the end of the world, because you wake yourself up again, you get yourself all busy, you have to drive home, and by the time you get home, you're generally tired again and ready to go to bed. If you think that when lying in Shavasana tonight, you are going to fall asleep, then I would rather you left the video and went and got snuggled into bed and fell asleep there. Because if you fall asleep on here, it's going to be A, quite hard for me to wake you up, because I'm not going to be able to come around and poke you on the shoulder. And B, if you do fall asleep, then you might be here for a while on the floor. So with all of those thoughts in your head, when you come into Shavasana, try hard not to fall asleep. Okay, so that might be keeping your feet cold, for instance, having your toes untucked, not putting your socks on, or something along those lines. That just is going to help you just to stay just softly and quietly alert. Okay. So good, everybody's all right. All right, so you do what you need to do. Get yourself super comfortable. If you're going to dim the lights, you can. You can put an eye pillow on and just come to lie down. If you haven't done so already, come and take a lie down. Another option is to lie with your knees bent, of course it is. And I'd like you to settle yourself against your mat for your last contribution, if you like, your last, it's not an attempt sounds too feeble, doesn't it? But your last commitment to surrendering for this practice this evening. And for this, I want you to close your eyes and let your body relax. And I'd like you to take a few soft breaths in and out. And then in your mind's eye, I'd like you to imagine that you're now lying on a boat. It's a fairly small boat. And you're floating, your boat is floating upon water. Maybe this water is a lake, maybe it's the sea. You picture wherever it is that you want to be. In the distance is mountains and beautiful, beautiful country. But it is nighttime, and it's a beautifully clear night. The stars are shining, and the moon is bright. Bright enough to cast a soft, gentle glow so that you're able to see clearly all around you. As you lie on your boat, you enjoy the gentle rocking. It's almost like a lullaby, and it soothes you. Your breath matches the movement of the water. Your breath mimics the sound of the sea. You feel the light of the moon embracing you. You breathe its energy in and out. It feels as though it's supercharging you. Making your bones denser. Filling you with a powerful feminine energy. Allowing you to feel balanced and nourished. For the time being, this position on your boat, just gently drifting along on the waves, feels as though it's exactly the right place for you to be at this moment in time. However, you know that if the wind picks up and the waves get a little bit bigger, you have the option of gliding into the water, going underneath the surface, where there are no waves, only the current to drift you along. And as you swim around in the water, perfectly at home, capable of going fast or slow, this too feels like a really good place to be. You're able to adapt. You're able to go with the flow. As you continue to swim in the water for a little bit longer, or return to your boat if you feel so inclined. But eventually I'd like you to make your way back to the shore. Your boat lands itself gently, and you climb out of the water, finding a soft patch of grass. You sit down, and as it's a beautifully warm evening, you dry off really quickly. You lay yourself down. You close your eyes. You can see the moon behind your closed eyelids. And it's almost as if it is a guide, directing you exactly where you need to go. And then I'd like you to allow any visualization to gently fade. Become aware of your body as it lays down. You feel peaceful and calm and rested. Be aware of your fingers and your toes. And begin to move them gently as you become aware of them. Turn your head from side to side. And if you need to, take a stretch out any way that feels good. Then when you're ready, bend your knees and roll yourself over to come and lie on your side, taking a breath or two once you get there. Okay. So slowly and carefully, use your hands to support you as you gently unravel yourself and come up to sit. All right, well done everybody. So as we always do, we're going to finish the practice together. So sit any way that is comfortable. It doesn't have to be cross-legged, be any other way. Just check you're all here with me. Yeah, good job. Okay, so let's take your fingertips down by your sides. With a breath in, sweep the hands all of the way up and above your head, bring the palms together. As you breathe out, bring the hands down through the midline and let them rest inside in front of your heart. Close your eyes, relax your shoulders, soften your jaw, and let your chin fall a little bit closer towards your chest as the mind bows in reverence to the heart. Maintain a little bit of space at the center of your palms. This space here is said to represent the space inside your heart. And as we breathe in and out, allow your breath to nourish the little flame of light that resides inside the space within your heart. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Taking another breath in this time, opening your eyes. Bring your hands together above your head and we'll share Namaste to finish the practice. Good job. And then when you're ready, come back up. Excellent. Right, I'm just going to scooch over towards the screen so that I can do this. Okay, good job everybody. Well done. It was super lovely practicing with you. I've taken you off of mute so you'll be able to hear each other. But yeah, have a lovely rest of the weekend. And you're very welcome. I'm going to try and stay nice and calm now. I'm going to offer you another yin practice, maybe not a 2-hour yin practice, maybe an hour and 15 during the week next week. So I'm going to offer a yin every week as well as a standard practice, because I think this is going to be really beneficial, really good, really nourishing for what's going on in our lives at the moment. And yeah, and we need to just keep practicing. So that's so important, so vital. So anyway, I'm going to let you slip off. Maybe go and make a nice milky drink, or but stay. Don't invite the outside world in. So here's the rules: you're not allowed the TV. You're certainly not allowed to put the news on. Okay, no one is allowed to go and watch the 10 o'clock news now. just stay really calm and peaceful. And don't let the outside world in. Just stay in this really lovely yin space for as long as you can. Okay, all right, lots of love to you all. I'll catch up with you individually. There's lots of people that I need to say hi to. Good night, have a lovely rest of the weekend and the evening, and I'll see you soon.